Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parishwara Stotra Sacha Sri Shriman. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Antara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Tagore Pramanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter number 14. Titled Pregnancy of Deity in the Evening. Text number 18. Sarvashraman upadaya. Sarvashraman upadaya. Swashramena kalatravan. Swashramena kalatravan. Vyasanarnavam atyeti. Vyasanarnavam atyeti. Jalayaner yatarnavam. Jalayaner yatarnavam. Sarvashraman upadaya. Swashramena kalatravan. Vyasanarnavam atyeti. Jalayane yatarnavam. Sarvashraman upadaya. Swashramena kalatravan. Vyasanarnavam atyeti. Jalayane yatarnavam. Swashramena kalatravam. Jalayane yatarnavam. Swashraman upadaya. Word for word translation. Sarva, all. Ashraman, social orders. Upadaya, completing. Swa, own. Ashramena, by the social orders. Kalatravan, a person living with a wife. Vyasana Arnavam, the dangerous ocean of material existence. Atyeti, one can cross over. Jalayane, with sea-going vessels. Yata, as. Arnavam, the ocean. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. As one can cross over the ocean with sea-going vessels, one can cross the dangerous situation of the material ocean by living with a wife. Purport. There are 4 social orders for cooperation in the endeavor for liberation from material existence. The orders of brahmacharya, or pious student life, household life with a wife, retired life, and renounced life all depend for successful advancement on the householder who lives with a wife. This cooperation is essential for the proper functioning of the institution of the 4 social orders and the 4 spiritual orders of life. The Vedic Varnasrama system is generally known as the caste system. The man who lives with a wife has a great responsibility in maintaining the members of the other social orders, the brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. Except for the grahasthas or the householders, everyone is supposed to engage in the spiritual advancement of life, and therefore the brahmachari, the vanaprastha, and the sannyasi have very little time to earn a livelihood. They therefore collect alms from the grahasthas, and thus they secure the bare necessities of life and cultivate spiritual understanding. By helping the other 3 sections of society cultivate spiritual values, the householder also makes advancement in spiritual life. Ultimately, every member of society automatically becomes spiritually advanced and easily crosses the ocean of nuisance. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksulmitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing our discussion from Canto 3, Chapter 14 of Srimad Bhagavatam, titled The Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening. Today's verse and the last few verses, they're spoken by Kashyapa Muni to his wife Diti. I'll read the translation again for today's verse. As one can cross over the ocean with sea-going vessels, one can cross the dangerous situation of the material ocean by living with a wife. And in today's purport, Prabhupada is giving an overview of the Varnasrama system, and Prabhupada is focusing more on the role of grahasthas or householders, their duties, the importance of their duties, and the function or the role they play in the whole Varnasrama system. And as we all know, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that Chaturvanamaya system, guna karma vibhagasa, that this whole Varnasrama system is created by none other than me. So this whole system is created by Krishna. And what is the purpose of the Varnasrama system? The purpose of the Varnasrama system is to slowly, gradually bring the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead, towards Krishna's lotus feet. And as we all know, Prabhupada in the purport, he's quoting about the 4 different ashramas. There's the brahmachari ashram, grihastha ashram, vanaprastha ashram, and sannyas ashram. And in today's purport, Prabhupada is specifically focusing on the role that householders or the role that persons in the grihastha ashram, they play. What is their function in this? And Prabhupada is saying that all the ashramas, they're all important. And in other places, Prabhupada will give the example of a body. Just like in our body, we have different parts of the body. And in one sense, all the parts of the body are important. We need our legs to move from here and there. We need our arms to do work. We need our eyes to see. We need our tongue to speak and taste foodstuffs. So all the parts of the body are equally important. But at the same time, certain parts of the body, they have, simultaneously you can say, certain parts of the body, they have more importance. For like the head. For example, the head. Prabhupada say if the head is gone, then the whole body is gone. So in this way, Prabhupada would explain that simultaneously, Achincha Veda Tattva. Simultaneously, all the parts of the body are important, but at the same time, a certain part of the body is more important than the others. So Prabhupada will use that to explain the importance of brahmanas in a civilization. How, yes, everyone has their role to play. We need Shudras, we need Vaishyas, we need Kshatriyas, and we need brahmanas. All of them are equally important, but at the same time, brahmanas are more important because brahmanas are the head of the society. They give guidance to all the other living entities in the civilization in how to go back home, back to Godhead. So, in today's purport, Prabhupada is focusing on the role that householders play. What is the importance of the Grahastha ashram? What function do they play in society? Prabhupada is explaining in today's purport that actually there's 4 ashramas, and only in one ashram there's a person actually engaged in material work. There's a person actually go to work and earn money. In the Brahmacharya ashram, one doesn't work. One is just staying in the Gurukul and learning spiritual science along with material science. And then Vanaprastha ashram, that's retired life. So one is again in Vanaprastha life, not working. He's just simply traveling from holy place to another holy place, engaging in full-time devotional service. And then again in the Sannyas ashram, again, one is engaged in full-time devotional service. So Prabhupada is saying, in the Vedic system, only in one ashram are conditioned souls required to work, only in the Grahastha ashram. So that's why Prabhupada is saying that that's the unique responsibility of the Grahastha ashram, because all the other 3 ashrams, the brahmacharis, the vanaprasthas, the sannyasis, they don't work. So how will they maintain themselves? So that responsibility the grahasthas they take. That responsibility the householders take. Because they are the only ones working, they have to take the responsibility to maintain the brahmacharis, they have to take the responsibility to maintain the vanaprasthas, and they have to take the responsibility of maintaining the sannyasis, because they are the only one working. And by doing this dharma of theirs, Prabhupada is explaining, they will naturally get the spiritual credits that the brahmacharis are acquiring. They will naturally get a share of the spiritual credits the vanaprasthas are acquiring, and they will naturally get the spiritual credits that sannyasis are also acquiring through the devotional service. So in this way, the grahasthas, although externally they're engaged in material work, material occupations, they'll also advance towards Krishna's lotus feet by assisting the other 3 ashrams in their devotional service. So that's the main thing Prabhupada is talking today in today's purport. I thought we can, because today's verse and the previous 3 verses, upcoming verses, they're all talking about this relationship between husband and wife. And many times whenever this theme comes in Bhagavatam of the ideal relationship between husband and wife, what Prabhupada will do, he would compare that with the relationship a disciple should have with his spiritual master. And this way Prabhupada will give us many instructive lessons. For example, when I was reading this, the first pastime that came to mind was later on in 3rd canto, the story of Mother Devahuti and Kardaba Muni. So as we know, the story goes that Mother Devahuti, she was a young princess. She was none other than the daughter of Swayambhu Manu. And Swayambhu Manu, he comes and offers, understanding the mind of his daughter, he comes and offers his daughter to Kardama Muni. Then they get married, and Kardama Muni, he's no prince or great king with a lot of wealth and opulence, but he's the complete opposite to Princess Devahuti. Devahuti, her whole life, she's just spent in the palace, not coming out, just completely surrounded with all the greatest opulence one can imagine. So Swayambhu Manu, he's no just ordinary king. He's a Manu. He rules for a whole Manvantara. And he's the first Manu. And he's the son of Lord Brahma also. And we saw how previously Brahma, he created Swayambhu Manu. From him, the universe was populated. So he's a very, very great personality. So one can imagine how much opulence and wealth he had, and how much opulence and wealth Mother Devahuti would have enjoyed before she got married. But now she's married to a great sage, Kardama Muni, and Kardama Muni, he's just completely the opposite to Mother Devahuti. He's just living in the forest very simply, just in a hut, just doing tapasya. But Princess Devahuti, Bhagavatam explains, she very sincerely serves Kardaba Muni without any reservations. And I'll read some of these verses describing how Mother Devahuti was serving her husband, Kardaba Muni, and Prabhupada will compare that, draw a comparison to how a disciple should serve his spiritual master and how a devotee should serve the Supreme Lord. So like this, we'll see through Bhagavatam, whenever this theme of a wife very chastely serving her husband comes up, Prabhupada will always compare that to how we should all serve our spiritual master with great sincerity, chastity, faith, respect, and so on and so forth. So this is 3rd Canto, chapter 23, text number 2. O Vidura, Devahuti served her husband with intimacy and great respect, with control of the senses, with love, and with sweet words. So in the purport, Prabhupada will go deep into some of the Sanskrit words. The first word is used, Vishrambhenatma. Vishrambhena means with intimacy. And then Bhagavatam explains, Atma Sochaina, with purity of mind and body. Then Gauravena, with great respect. Then Damena, with control of the senses. Then Shushrusaya, with service. Sohridena, with love. Vacha, Madhurya, with sweet words. So in all of these different ways, Mother Devahuti was serving her husband, Kardaba Muni. And the purport, Prabhupada explains that just as Devahuti is serving her husband with all these same qualities we need to have when we serve our spiritual masters and when a devotee serves the Supreme Lord. So when we're serving our mentors or Siksha Gurus or our Diksha Gurus, then we need to serve them with intimacy. We need to serve them with purity of mind and body. We need to serve them with great awe and respect. We need to serve them with control of the senses. And also it's mentioned we should serve them with sweet words. Whatever things we speak should be pleasing to the ear of our spiritual masters, so on and so forth. And in the purport, Prabhupada specifically, he goes deep into 2 words. Prabhupada highlights which Devahuti served her husband in 2 ways, Vishrambhena and Gauravena. Vishrambhena means with intimacy, and Gauravena means with great reverence. And Prabhupada in the purport explains that actually these 2 qualities, they are technically contradictory qualities. They're like opposing qualities. Because Vishrambhena means with intimacy. Intimacy means you get very close and personal with that person. You come very close and personal and you understand everything about them. But Gauravena means the opposite. Gauravena means with great respect, with great awe and reverence. So when someone is looking at someone with great awe and reverence, then one keeps some distance between himself and that person and goes a bit back. But Vishrambhena means you come very close. So in that sense, it seems that these 2 qualities are a bit contradictory, Vishrambhena and Gauravena. But Prabhupada explains in an ideal relationship between a husband and wife, an ideal relationship between guru and disciple, and an ideal relationship between a devotee and the Supreme Lord, these 2 supposedly contradictory qualities have to go hand in hand. How Prabhupada explains, when Bhagavatam explains we should serve with intimacy means, just like a friend, 2 friends, very close friends, they're very intimate in the sense that they understand the mood, they understand the desires, the likes and dislikes of the other friend. In the same way, Prabhupada explains that intimacy in this relationship means one understands the desires of the other person. So the wife needs to understand the desires, the mood, the mentality, the likes and dislikes of her husband. Same way the disciple needs to understand the mood, the likes, dislikes, the desires, the heart of the spiritual master. Just like Prabhupada, he used to tell his disciples that I didn't have much physical contact with my spiritual master. I had a few occasions with him, but I understood the mood of my guru. My Guru Maharaj told me that if you ever get any money, then you print books. And my Guru Maharaj personally told me that ever since we've built this big temple, all of my disciples have been fighting over, who's going to take which room, and so on and so forth. And my Guru Maharaj said that he thought it's better to sell this temple. It's better to sell all the marble in this temple and use that money to print books. And Prabhupada told his disciples, when he heard this, he could understand that the mood of his spiritual master was that he really liked books. He really liked the distribution of books. So then Prabhupada says, that's why I'm always stressing, distribute books, distribute books, distribute books. Because this was the mood of my spiritual master. So that's what intimacy means. Visrambena, or intimacy, means that the disciple or the devotee of the Lord, he understands the mood of the Guru, or he understands the mood of the Lord. Or the wife understands the mood, likes and dislikes of her husband. Then we have the opposite quality, Gauravena. On one hand, the disciple has to be very, very close to the Guru. On one hand, the wife has to be very, very close to the husband and understand the moods, the likes and dislikes. But on the other hand, one needs to keep some distance. That's what Gauravena means. Gauravena means with great respect and reverence, which means one should have that friendly relationship in terms of understanding the mood, but at the same time, one needs to understand that my Guru Maharaj is superior to me, and I am just an insignificant, humble servant of my Guru Maharaj. And the wife needs to understand that, okay, my husband, he's on a superior level to me, my duty is to serve him. And the servant, the devotee of the Lord, he understands, okay, I am so tiny and infinitesimal, and Krishna, Gopinath, he is unlimited, he is infinite. There's nothing I can ever do to do enough service unto his lotus feet. So that's Gauravena, which means with great awe and reverence. So one needs to have that healthy respect towards the Guru. Ghanshyam Prabhu was giving the example that in our relationship with our spiritual masters, sometimes the spiritual master can joke with us, crack jokes with us, and if the Guru is doing from his side, then we can play along with it, we can also laugh. But from our side, we should never joke with our Guru. If we do that, then it becomes an offense. And Ghanshyam Prabhu was giving an example how one time in Mayapur, Prabhupada and all of his disciples, they were taking bath in the Ganga. And they were having fun. And, Prabhupada's young disciples, some of them were sannyasis, big leaders, out of fun, just, out of love for Prabhupada, they started, gently splashing water on Prabhupada. And when this happened, Prabhupada, he gently warned his disciples that don't get too close to the spiritual master. So the spiritual master from his side, he can tease us, he can crack jokes, make funny comments about us. And if he does that, we can play along with that, and we can also laugh. But from our side, we should never, Ghanshyam Prabhu mentions, from our side, we should never joke with our spiritual master or those who are senior to us. If we do so, then there's a good possibility it can become an offense. It could become an aparad. So that's what Gauravena means. That on one hand, one is very intimate and understands all the moods and the desires. On the other hand, one is also maintaining that healthy distance of great awe and reverence that, okay, he's superior than me. My duty is just that of service to him. Just like Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto, when Lord Nrsimhadev was asking Prahlad Maharaj, please ask me for any benediction. What does Prahlad Maharaj say? He says, my dear Lord, our relationship is simply that of servant and master. You are the master, I am the servant. There is no other relationship between you and me. My only relationship with you is that I am your servant and my duty is to serve you. Let there be no other relationship. Let there be nothing else. So that's Gauravena, with great respect and reverence. Then if the wife does this, if the disciple does this in regard to his spiritual master, and if the devotee does this in regard to the Supreme Lord, what happens next? Bhagavatam explains that then one naturally acquires all the blessings of the spiritual master. One naturally acquires all the spiritual credits of the husband, or one naturally acquires all the blessings of the Supreme Lord. And we'll see the same thing happening later on in this chapter. So Canto 3, Chapter 23. We're hearing now of how Devahuti is serving her husband. Then a few texts later, it will be explained about, as an end result of her sincere service, what happened. So I'll continue reading this section. So that was text 2. Text 3. Working sanely and diligently, she pleased her very powerful husband, giving up all lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities, and vanity. So just as Mother Devahuti, she gave up all these anarthas in serving her husband, in the same way, when we serve our spiritual masters, we need to give up these anarthas, because these anarthas will get in the way of our service to our gurus. For example, lust, pride, envy, greed, If we are having these anathas in our heart, then naturally these will be stumbling blocks in our service. Then text 4 to 5. The daughter of Manu, who was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater even than providence. Thus she expected great blessings from him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. Kardama Muni said, O respectful daughter of Swayambhu Manu, today I am very much pleased with you for your great devotion and most excellent loving service. Since the body is so dear to embodied beings, I am astonished that you have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. So one of the things that astonished Kardama Muni, the husband of Mother Devahuti, was, he's mentioning here, that in general for all conditioned living entities, the thing which is most dear to them is their own body. But Kardama Muni is saying that what I'm astonished is, although this body is supposed to be the most dear object of all souls, all conditioned souls, you have completely neglected your own body and just selflessly you've been serving me for so many years now. So much so, your body has become so weak, emaciated, your hair has become matted, you've completely neglected your health, you completely neglect your body, and just selflessly, without thinking of your own self, you're just serving me. And because of that, I'm completely sold out. And then in the next verse, Kardama Muni will say that I have achieved the blessings of the Lord in discharging my own religious life of austerity, meditation, Krishna consciousness. Although you have not experienced these achievements, which are free from fear and lamentation, I shall offer them all to you, because you are engaged in my service. Now just look at them. I am giving you the transcendental vision to see how nice they are. So when someone serves their husband, or when a disciple serves their spiritual master, or when a devotee serves the Supreme Lord, selflessly, without thinking of their own happiness and distress, without thinking of their own bodily needs, then an end result of that, the person they're serving, they become completely sold out. And helplessly, they bestow all the benedictions upon that person. And in the purport to the next verse, Prabhupada will explain that Mother Devahuti, she wasn't so spiritually advanced. Kardama Muni, his whole life, he's been doing tapasya, penances, he's been studying the Shastras, so he was very, very advanced spiritually. But Mother Devahuti, she was just a princess. So she wasn't so much zoomed into spiritual life. So in comparison, Mother Devahuti, in terms of spiritually being advanced, she was very low, Prabhupada was explaining in the purport. But Prabhupada explains, just because of one good thing Mother Devahuti did, she became just as advanced as Kardama Muni. How? Although she was very weak in terms of austerities, although she was very weak in terms of spiritual realization, although she was very weak in terms of knowledge of the Shastras, realization of the Shastras, but there's one good thing she did. What? She served another devotee of the Lord who was spiritually advanced. And Prabhupada explains, when you serve another devotee who is very spiritually advanced, very sincerely, then as a result of that, although we ourselves might not be very strong, although we ourselves might be weak and unqualified, by the blessings of that great personality, we'll become just as advanced as that person. And that's what Prabhupada explains is happening here in this chapter with Mother Devahuti. Just before this, she was just an ordinary woman, but by serving her husband, Kardama Muni was so pleased, Bhagavatam explains, that whatever spiritual credits Kardama Muni had attained by years and decades of tapasya, all those spiritual credits he just bestowed upon Mother Devahuti. Although she wasn't qualified, although she hadn't done any tapasya, penance, although she hadn't spent years and years studying the Shastras, she became just as qualified, she became just as spiritually wealthy as Kardama Muni, just by serving him. In the same way, Prabhupada explains in the purport that the exact same thing happens in the relationship between the spiritual master and the disciple. That if the disciple, although he's a neophyte, although he's struggling with his senses, he's struggling with anathas, if he simply lets go of his personal likes and dislikes and just completely surrenders onto the Guru and just serves him faithfully, then the spiritual master just blesses him with all the good qualities, with all empowerment. And we see that with Srila Prabhupada's disciples. Previously coming to Krishna consciousness, they were all engaged in so many sinful activities. But just in a matter of years, they immediately became sannyasis, gurus, leaders of the Krishna conscious movement. Immediately they started opening temples all around the world, making hundreds and hundreds of devotees. How did they get so much empowered? By completely surrendering onto Srila Prabhupada. So then Prabhupada blessed them with all of the divine qualities, all spiritual qualities. And another example of this is Krishna himself. He shows this by example in Krishna book, 10th canto. If we remember the story of Krishna and Sudama Vipra going to the forest to collect firewood for the spiritual master, and then suddenly there was a great storm. I was thinking about his pastime over the last few days when it was been just raining over and over again, non-stop. So Krishna and his friend Sudama, they're in the forest, and what are they doing? They're sincerely trying to please their spiritual master by collecting firewood. But then suddenly there's a big storm, and then there's a huge flood, just like we're having floods now over New South Wales. But the amazing thing is, the whole night they were there in the forest, just holding on to each other under a tree, and then they come back. And the amazing thing, Bhagavatam explains, that the firewood they had collected, they were still holding on to that firewood. Despite the flood, despite the heavy rainfall, despite the natural disaster that was happening, they didn't let go of the firewood. They were holding on to the firewood for the spiritual master. And in the morning, when all the flash flooding and the flash storm was gone, they came and presented the firewood to the spiritual master. So one would think that, okay, they went to the forest to do a particular service, they got the firewood, but then when the storm was happening, one would think, okay, they would have let go of the firewood, thinking that, okay, Guru Maharaj will understand, this is like a freak incident when there's a huge flood, huge storm, thunderbolts, lightning. If we let go of the firewood, no one would question them. Why didn't you bring the wood? Because it's a very extreme situation where flash flooding and thunderstorms are happening. No one would question Krishna and Sudama's sincerity that why didn't you bring the firewood? But still, Krishna and Sudama Brahmana, they were so sincere servants of their spiritual master that they didn't let go of the firewood. Even though there was a huge storm, even though there was thunderbolts going, even though there was flash flooding, throughout the whole night, despite all the crazy weather, they held on tightly to the firewood. And in the morning, when their spiritual master found them, they very nicely came and offered the firewood to their spiritual master. So then again the same thing, exact same verses are mentioned. Words are spoken by Sandipuni Muni. Sandipuni Muni, when he gets the firewood from his disciples, Krishna and Sudama, his heart just completely melts. He's completely blown away by seeing the sincerity of his disciples. And Sandipuni Muni, he says that, again, the same thing he mentions, that ordinarily in this mature world, for conditioned souls, the most dear thing for conditioned souls is their own body. But you two disciples of mine, Krishna and Sudama, you have sacrificed your own bodily needs, you have sacrificed the well-being of your own body just to render service unto my lotus feet. At the risk of your own personal lives, at the risk of your own physical bodies, you have put higher priority to my service by holding on to this firewood. Therefore, I'm completely sold out. All my blessings are upon you. And at this moment, Sandipuni Muni, I think in this or later on, he blesses Krishna that all your pastimes will be ever fresh. No one will ever become tired of hearing your pastimes. So exact same thing is demonstrated by Krishna and Sudama Brahmana, of how one should sincerely render service to the spiritual master. And one does this without sacrificing his own personal likes and dislikes, even his own needs of his own body, then that completely wins over the guru, that completely wins over the spiritual master. And naturally, the spiritual master helplessly is forced to give all spiritual blessings, all credits onto the disciple. Another thing I was hearing recently, that His Grace Vaisheshik Prabhu is drawing comparison between previous ages and Kali Yuga. And he was explaining, just as in previous yugas, they used to do fire sacrifices. And for fire sacrifices, the disciple, to assist the spiritual master in their particular fire sacrifice for the Supreme Lord, they would go and collect firewood, just like we're seeing in this instance, Krishna and Sudama going and collecting firewood. And then they would come and offer the firewood. And just like in this instance, we see, despite all challenges or obstacles that might come, the ideal disciple, he would still, stick it out through all obstacles and challenges, just like Krishna and Sudama, and bring the firewood for the fire yagna, for the service of his spiritual master. So in the same way, Vaisheshika Prabhu is explaining that now in Kali Yuga, what's the fire sacrifice? What's the yagna? It's Sankirtan yagna. And just like for previous yuga, firewood was carried by the disciples of the spiritual masters. Vaisheshika Prabhu was mentioning that same, even in Kali Yuga, the same thing is happening. How? He was explaining nowadays, Srila Prabhupada's disciples and followers, they're going out onto the streets carrying books in their hand to do Sankirtan Yagna. And what are these books? These books are same wood. These books come from where? Paper comes from trees. So these books are also just like firewood. So just like in previous ages, the disciples used to go collect firewood to assist the spiritual master in performing a yagna to please the Supreme Lord. Vaisheshika Prabhu is explaining, even now in Kali Yuga, all the followers of Srila Prabhupada, they're going out onto the streets carrying Srila Prabhupada's books to do Sankirtan Yagna to please the Supreme Lord. And just like for Krishna and Sudama, while they were going out to get firewood, they didn't let go of the firewood, despite the heavy storm, despite the rainfall and whatever challenges came. In the same way, when we go out to do Sankirtan Yagna, when we go out to do Harinam or book distribution, despite whatever external challenges come, we should always remember, we should stick it out and not let it get in the way of our service to our spiritual master. Just like Krishna and Sudama did. If we do it like that no matter what the external situation is, whether it's 40 degrees out there, whether it's raining, whether it's, 0 degrees, no matter what the weather is, no matter what the external situation is, if we just go out day in and day out, distributing books regardless of whatever external challenges is there, then that really pleases Srila Prabhupada. That shows Srila Prabhupada how sincere we are, how dedicated we are to his service. Then naturally Prabhupada will be forced to bestow upon us all of his blessings. In regard to this, I'll give one more example. Personal example, I saw myself, me and Nganshampru, we were in Wagga Wagga. In end of last year in December, we were distributing books there for a bit more than a month. And one day we went to distribute books in one particular part of Wagga Wagga, south of Wagga, and we were doing door to door as usual. And Ghanshyam was doing one side of the street, I was doing the other side. And we did for a few hours, and then it was time for lunch. So at lunchtime we gathered together again, and then me and Ghanshyam Prabhu got in the car, and then Prabhu started driving. And then Ghanshyam Prabhu, he told me that today I'm having a very ecstatic day. And he told me that just at that time, at lunchtime, he had already distributed 70 hardbound Maha Big books. And when I heard that, I was like completely shocked. Like, already you've distributed 70 hardbound Maha Big books? And he said, yeah, today everything is going like that. So Ghanshyam Prabhu, as our Sankirtan leader, he's leading from the front. So he told me that, yes, today I'm having a very ecstatic day. Sets and sets of Srila Prabhupada's books are going to house. I'm doing sets of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1, Krishna book, and Nectar Devotion. So I'm doing sets of 4 books per house. And pretty much every house I'm going, knocking, they're buying a whole set of books. And he said one new strategy is that he sells one set to one particular family, then he asks them, Dad, do you have any friends or do you know any of the neighbors around here who also might be interested? And some of them say yes, they call up their friends, and not only do they buy a set for themselves, but they also buy 1 or 2 sets for their friends or neighbors in the area. So he said in this way, some families, they didn't just take a set of 4 books, but they took a set of 12 books, 16 books like that. So by lunchtime, he said he had already done 70 Maha Big books. But he said, right at the end, something happened. I said, what happened? He said that actually one house, I sold the set, and just after selling the set, one dog started barking and coming straight at me. And this dog came, and I tried to kick it away, but the dog, it caught hold of my leg and it bit me. And I have a wound on my leg. And from my mother was a doctor, Ghanshyam Prabhu was saying, and she said that if any dog bites you, you should immediately go to the hospital, otherwise there can be, some transference of disease or so on. So one needs to go to the hospital and get it checked. So then Prabhu was driving to the hospital to get the dog bite checked. So we went to the Wagga Wagga hospital. They took us to the emergency department, and then they took Ghanshyam Prabhu in. They gave him some TT injection, tetanitis something, that if you get this injection, then you won't get some disease caused by bites of dogs. And they gave him some medicine, some antibiotics, and they bandaged up Prabhu's leg. And then what happened? Then Prabhu wasn't thinking of resting. Prabhu was just thinking of how to do 100 Mahabig books. His whole idea wasn't that, okay, I got bit by a dog, maybe we should go home, take rest. But Ghanshyam Prabhu, leading from the front like Sankirtan leader, his whole mind was, let me just go to the hospital and just get this injection, just get this over and done with. Then let us go back to our caravan park and get more books. Because that day, because Prabhu had already done 70 Mahabig books, the car was empty. All the books were finished. There were hardly any books left. So then after going to the hospital, after getting his leg bandaged, after getting the injection, then again we drove to the caravan park, collected more boxes of books. Then again we went back out onto the streets. Then again Ghanshyam Prabhu, he continued on distributing books despite the bite of the dog. And he continued distributing books for another hour. And then after 1 hour, he had crossed 100 Mahabig books, hardbound Mahabig books. So this is Ghanshyam Prabhu leading from the front as a Sankirtan leader, again showing how the disciple should sincerely serve the spiritual master without any personal consideration of likes and dislikes, sacrificing even their own body, just like Krishna and Sudama. Without thinking of their own personal well-being, they were holding on to the firewood, despite the thunderbolts, despite the rainfall and the flash flooding. In the same way, we see Ghanshyam Prabhu, despite being bitten by a dog, he wasn't considering that. He was just thinking, let me do 100 Mahabig books for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada. So the same mood and attitude we need to also have in our service, that we should slowly cultivate this selfless devotional attitude. Instead of thinking of our own personal likes and dislikes, we should think, what is the likes and dislikes of my spiritual master? What can I do to please him? And this, Prabhupada says, is the ideal mood of the wife in relationship with her husband, and the ideal mood of the disciple in relationship with his spiritual master, and the ideal mood of a devotee in relationship with the Supreme Lord. Okay, I'll stop here. Is there any questions or comments? Yes.
I think the last couple of classes, so this question is from verse 15.
Okay.
Translation, it says that when someone is in distress, approaches a great person, his plea should never go in vain. I was actually just reflecting on an instance back at home. There used to be we used to come with a tamura.
Sorry, can you repeat that again? There used to be a...
There used to be a person who used to beg for some charity in front of my home. He used to come with tamura. He used to sing some devotional songs and stuff. So we actually just used to go in and give some rice. This when I was a kid, we used to smell like alcohol, from his mouth. So at the time I didn't know, but later on I was just trying to reflect, and we kind of stopped giving him anything. The reason I'm asking is, he was sitting in a distressed position. But as I understand, if you were to give charity to that kind of person, you would actually get back, simple. So how is that actually applies in this kind of situation? I know the instance is actually different between Kashyapa and
Yeah. So Prabhupada explains in his purports that one thing we need to understand, that the root cause of everyone's distress in this world is forgetfulness of Krishna. So in that sense, Prabhupada says that the best philanthropic activity we can do, the best charity we can give, the best help we can give to a person in distress is bring them closer to Krishna's lotus feet. So give them somehow or other, give them a way to make them come closer to Krishna. So that's why we distribute prasadam, because when they get prasadam, it's spiritually sanctified food. It's food that's offered to Krishna himself. They make some spiritual advancement. We distribute the holy name. We teach people how to chant Hare Krishna. We give them books. So in that way, we are helping those in need. That way, we're helping those in distress. So in this instance, if beggars are coming, if we give them prasadam, then that's good. We are giving them, their stomach is being satisfied, but at the same time they're getting spiritual benefit also. So in that sense, Prabhupada is saying that we should look beyond the body and see what is the root cause of everyone's suffering. The root cause of everyone's suffering is they are separated from Krishna, and that is the root cause of their unhappiness. So a devotee seeing through the eyes of the Shastra, he understands this and he thinks, how can I bring this conditioned soul closer to Krishna? Okay, maybe I can give him prasadam, maybe give him a card to the temple, inspire him to come to some kirtan, give him a book, so on and so forth, like that. Okay, so we'll stop here. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagurusha Prabhupada ki jai, entire Gaur Pamanande, Hari Hari Bol.